you lead us in the pledge of flag?
Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
When the board opens, please report your presence. Has every member recorded their presence or their attendance? We didn't bring presents. See that? How you gonna act? Madam Clerk?
19 present, 5 absent.
Thank you, Madam Clerk. We have any guest speakers this evening? Just going to make sure, I knew about an hour ago that I was going to be chairing the meeting. Just want to make sure I didn't miss anybody.
We do have an introduction or new basic service officer.
Commissioner Sid, would you like to make the introduction?
Yes. Mr. Woodall.
Yes, sir.
Mike on already? This is our new veteran service officer for Sullivan County, Mr. Hunter Woodall. I think he's going to be a great fit for the county. We put him through a pretty grueling interview process, so we've got Mr. Chairman, give me a couple minutes to speak. Mr. Woodall.
Thank you.
Mr. Woodall?
Thank you. Thank you. I just want to thank each of you for putting your trust in me and giving me to go ahead to serve this great county and to serve our veterans. I'm a veteran myself. I did 6.5 years in the Army as an air traffic controller. I got out, did some other things, but my passion's always been to serve veterans and to help people. So that's why I'm excited for this opportunity to serve our veterans and to serve this great county. So thank each of you for your trust.
Thank you, sir. And I'd also like to acknowledge our highway superintendent, Mr. Murray. Good to see you. I'd like to welcome 2 of our area mayors, Mayor Leffler and not looking at me. Good to see you, everybody. Thank y'all for being here with us. Also, we have our administrative relations, Mr. Boer. He's going to be speaking to us on item number 6. So if you will come to the front, and when we get into our regular business, we're going to move item number 6 to the front of the.
Hey, Herb, you make this way, Mike.
It don't count if you have to push the button. So, Mr. Brewer, you're recognized, sir.
Okay. Thank you, Mr. Chair. Members of the commission, you appointed members of the Ethics Committee last year. And I was once again chosen to be the chair of that committee. And we learned a lot more about ethics in the last 3 or 4 months than some of us knew or thought we knew, and went through a process that hadn't been gone through in some time. And one of the things we did was vote unanimously to recommend to you an amendment to the ethics policy. I'm not here to lecture you tonight. I don't have the authority to lecture you. The Ethics Committee doesn't have the authority to determine innocence or guilt. The Ethics Committee is not a punitive body. We do not have the authority to dole out punishment to anyone. We are a hearing board. That's all we are. We are to determine if we believe there's a violation of the ethics policy and to which body or office we are to make the referral. You, as a body, are one of those entities that we can make a referral to if we believe there's a violation. Your authority extends to censure, the equivalent of a slap on the wrist. Don't do that again. We can refer a matter to the district attorney if we believe there's a criminal violation. Let me stop for a minute and just say that ethics is not a legal proceeding. It's not a criminal offense. It's a political issue. It's not a legal issue. And this body, in fact, being a political body, adopts the policy by which the county operates. And the county is defined in the policy. And that's one of the things we're amending tonight, or proposing for amendment, is definitions of who is included in the county. But the other opportunity for us is to refer to the county attorney for consideration, to make advice to us as a committee or to you as a body. And the one thing that we are not is a grievance board for personnel issues or for how our county entities, our county office holders that are independently elected by the citizens of Sullivan County are to operate their offices. And I think sometimes that becomes an issue or is a thought that some people have. That the ethics committee can do all these things and they're the arbiter of all things, and that if you've got a problem with somebody, you can bring an ethics violation against them and they'll resolve it. State law establishes, as is in the first whereas of the resolution, that there has to be an ethics committee. Actually, it doesn't even do that. There doesn't have to be an ethics committee. It just has to have a policy. Most counties and CTAS recommends that there be an ethics committee for the separation of some of the politics that can come into play. Because this is all political. Every bit of this is political. It's not legal. And state law establishes that we are to adopt an ordinance of ethical standards for all officials and employees related to the acceptance of gifts and disclosure of conflicts of interest. It's a pretty broad flyover. It's not very specific, so it gives a lot of leeway. You can be as narrow as you would like, or as broad as you like, as long as you have a policy. Not every county has to have the same policy. Not every county has the same policy. It's not just counties, but it's every legal entity that exists in the state government on the jurisdictional level. That's the second whereas. The third whereas is a specific reference to 817-1023 that states from state law that the term ethical standards does not include personnel or employment policies or procedures related to the operational aspects of governmental entities. I just want that noted. That's not an opinion from the ethics committee or me or anyone else, mayor, any individual commissioner. That is state law. And CTAS's guidance on that issue is if it is something that relates in any way, shape, form, or fashion to a personnel issue or a governmental operations issue, we're to refer that to the department head. The policy states that as well. The third, or the fourth whereas, is a reference to Tennessee law that says that the CTAS was, County Technical Assistance Service, was directed by the General Assembly to provide a model policy. And that model policy is available on CTAS website. You can go look at it. For the most part, our policy mirrors the model policy, with some deviation, especially as it pertains to the gifts, provisions, and what's acceptable and what's not. I know in 2007 when the policy was adopted by the County Commission then, initially, and then a few months later, short months later, they come back and they amended the policy to kind of clear up some of what was acceptable and what was not acceptable. And then we unanimously adopted the following changes to the ethics policy and recommend them to you for adoption as a body, as the legislative body of the Sullivan County Commission. So the first thing we're doing in section 1 is deleting county school board and utility districts from our ethics policy. Why? Because state law has already done so. Our policy has not been updated to reflect what state law has already changed. We have no jurisdiction over those two entities. And so they're included in our policy. As chair for the last several years, there's been issues that come up specifically with utility districts. I get the phone calls, we don't deal with that, well, your policy says it does. Well, the policy's not been updated, so we're clearing that up. Section 5, if you remember when you all were first elected, especially I think 8 of you new to the commission, there was questions about the terms of office of the members of the ethics committee. The model policy directs that there's 5 members. This county has adopted 7 members. But then for some reason, and there was probably a good reason, and we may realize that in the future and go back, who knows? That's the beauty about this, we can amend it anytime we want to. There were staggered terms. Well, I can tell you from running elections, keeping track of staggered terms is not an easy thing to do. For important positions such as yours and other county offices that are constitutionally defined or statutorily defined, let alone something that's somewhere way down the ladder like an ethics committee membership. And so this changes and says that instead of having staggered terms, every member of the ethics committee is reappointed annually by this body at your time for doing so for all other committees. So August, September, fall of the year, that's when this would happen. No one on the committee is term limited. You can appoint the same people as often as you like, as long as they are a member of, they fall under the ethics policy. So they're employed by Sullivan County, or they are subject to the policy. They have to be subject to the policy. And then the final amendment is just an addition. And in the final sections of the Code of Ethics, there's several under Section 6 general statutory references, code sites for things that exceed the policy as adopted, that the General Assembly has adopted as things that we can't touch. And one of those is this last edition as far as sheriffs and deputy sheriffs purchasing either directly or indirectly property sold through their own judicial sale, no matter which court is involved. It's pretty straightforward. I would submit to you that all 3 of these amendments are housekeeping amendments. They're not substantive changes. They do not alter anything as far as how this ethics policy applies or what it includes or doesn't include. And I would say to you that I know, and we've had a discussion with the county attorney, that all county employees are required to sign a statement saying they received and that they understand that they're subject to the ethics policy. And we need to research to determine if county commissioners are included in that as well as other office holders. I know the office holders that are in the room, they have employees and they all have to sign a form when they have them hired on for the job, and they have to submit that to the payroll office. So between now and next week, the determination will be made if you need to sign that as a member of the county commission or not. But definitely, there's just a few not present tonight that are absent. Make sure that they understand there is an ethics policy. Ignorance of the law is no excuse. This is not really the law, but in effect it somewhat has the full weight of the law. Finally, I will say, anybody who has any questions about anything ethics, now is your opportunity to ask me. And I will do my best to answer. And if I don't have an answer, I will get back to you with the proper answer as soon as I can. Yes, sir, Mr. Jones.
I've got the board here. Commissioner Akers is seeking recognition, and then I'll go. Anyone has any questions? Mr. Boer, just hit your button. I'll recognize you. Commissioner Akers, you're recognized, sir.
Thank you, Chairman.
we're doing tug of war.
Yeah, all right. Thank you for speaking to us tonight. Mr.
Absolutely.
Election. No, last thing you just said about the commission signing in ethics, and you're going to find out, why can't we just adopt a policy that says every commissioner should sign, we need to sign ethics policy?
You can include that in the policy as an amendment, and if you want to add that as a section, I can prepare for you between now and next week, in addition to that, to say that all elected officials and employees, I'm not sure what the foundation, and I'll research this to determine if your solution is required.
Okay.
And even if it's not required, perhaps it's a good thing to put in the policy just as a reference point to say that everybody needs to sign this.
Yeah, I mean, like you said, those of us that hire people, we have them sign, the handbooks, ethics policies and everything else, so we should be held to the same standard as employees.
So my
Or
question
above, we should be held to higher standards, but,
I would have a question for the body, especially the 8 new. Is this, have you, and some of you may have seen ethics policy in other places, but as a commissioner, is this the first time you've seen this policy? Okay, so you've seen it before. Okay, good. That's great.
Mr. Jones?
Would you talked about a lot of things, but we have the current, the old policy. Would you walk through and tell us what to mark out? You
So-
named several things.
Yes. So in section 1, on the first page, on the 3rd line to the right where it says county school board, it extends to the 4th line. That would be a deletion.
Okay.
And then right below that, utility districts would be a deletion. Just those 2 reference points.
Okay.
And then on section 5, which will be on the back of page 2, the first paragraph is deleted and substituted instead will be what the language that's included in the resolution.
Section 5.
Where it starts with ethics complaints. Back of the second page.
Yes.
So you would delete that first paragraph and substitute in its place the language that is referenced in the resolution. And then finally, section 6 would just be the addition of that particular code site, which is TCA 88206, regarding Sheriff's Department employees and deputy sheriffs. There's no reference point in the current policy, you're just adding it to what's already there, the list.
Oh, you're adding sheriff's departments to it.
We're not really adding Sheriff's Department to policy, we're adding a reference to the statute that governs sheriffs and sheriff's deputies.
TCA what?
88206, it's actually in the resolution.
I didn't know this was a resolution. Okay. Thank you.
Absolutely.
Commissioner Aker?
thank you, Chairman Pro Tem again. Mr. Brewer, I don't know if you can answer this question, and if you need to research it. That's section 6, applicable state laws, TCA 88206. Did that come about because some newly elected sheriff's officials to our commission and everything?
No, I don't think it has any reference to Sullivan County, I think it's a general application across the state, because that particular statute applies statewide. And no, you're not going to trap me into what you're trying to trap me into.
He tries.
He tries. And I'm not sure, there was a couple of dates that were incorrect on the resolution. Have they been cleared up? No. We will clean those up between now and your actual adoption of the resolution. 2021 specifically being the date.
Does anyone else seek recognition?
Speak now or forever hold your peace. I don't want any phone calls about ethics. Any of you guys.
When we,
You never call me, none of you never call me, right?
we actually don't have any old business, so when we get into the new business resolution portion, we're going to bring item number 6 up first in the interest of allowing Mr. Brewer to answer any questions that the resolution may bring up, and then we can, what's 5?
Yeah.
Excuse me. Okay. We'll say, you sure? You sure it's 5 or 6? My packet says 6.
One point of personal privilege before I leave. We had originally scheduled for next week a elections law and procedure review for each of you. This is a continuation of something we started earlier in the year with other individuals, elected office holders. And I realize that you all have your beautiful photographs being taken next week at the same time. So we will schedule that, and I'll try to do it on a date that coincides with the meeting you have, so you're not traversing to Bluntville for another meeting, yet another meeting.
Item 1, of course, is zoning, and we're going to move into our resolution portion. I recognize Commissioner Harvey on. You are correct. It is item number 5.
I just wanted to add as a co-sponsor Matt Slagle to this resolution.
He's on there, yes. He's the co-sponsor.
And also just encourage everyone when they have time to really take the time to go over this code of ethics, because it's very detailed and there's been a whole lot of thought put into it, but we interpret ethics very differently. I talked to one person in here and we all interpret it very differently. So I think we need to be very cognizant of what this says, and if we have questions, to ask those questions and make sure that we're on the same page as much as possible, so that, you know, because a lot of this goes back to optics, and we need to make sure that we have the utmost integrity in what we're doing. So just encourage everybody, really take it seriously and take the time to review it carefully and dig down and ask questions if you have questions about it.
You want the waiver rules? Or you
At first, I'm going to recognize Attorney Street.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I just wanted to brag on the chairman of the Ethics Committee. How long have you been doing this?
I think I've been on the committee 12 years. I've been chair for 4 or 6, I can't remember which.
Well, I was specifically talking about his position as chair. I think he does a great job. He's got a really good grasp of the purpose of the Ethics Committee. He does a great job of screening complaints that might otherwise tear people's lives up, and he screens them out very good. Some of those complaints could involve some of you, and he has a very good grip on it, and I just wanted to let y'all know that he does a great job.
Thank you, Attorney Street. Recognize Commissioner Harvey, last word on the resolution.
Just whether or not we need to make that change about adding the signatures. Is that something we can do?
Would that come in form of an amendment to the resolution?
We'll find out.
We could have that. We'd have that ready by next week, and we could hear it.
So, Mr. Chairman, if I may, one, in response to follow up to what Commissioner Harvey said, ethics, your personal definition of ethics, other governmental entities or private entities' definition of ethics are not necessarily the code of ethics that we follow. The code of ethics that we follow are not up to me or the commission. It's actually up to you guys, because you adopted it. But once you've adopted it, this document directs what is considered ethical or not ethical and how it is to be defined. And when the Ethics Committee meets, or when I consider, as County Attorney Street mentioned, and thank you for kind remarks, we look at the document. We focus on the document in front of us. We don't go beyond it. And quite frankly, sometimes that's difficult to do because you think in your own personal judgment that this wasn't right. Not criminal, but not right, unethical. It's not up to me, and it's not up to one individual. It's up, this document is basically the equivalent of our Bible. That's what we follow. And until you decide to amend it in any way, shape, form, or fashion, And I'm not suggesting to you that, I personally feel like there's a reason or a need for amendment at this point. And I think it's a great thing that we've only had 2 complaints since 2007 that have warranted review by the Ethics Committee, to my knowledge. It speaks highly for our county. But there's been only 2.
Commissioner Akers, you're recognized, sir.
Thank you, sorry to keep on this, but if we come up with an amendment that we require the commission to sign one, which I think I have no problem with, and this may be a question either for you or for Dan, could we also say the other constitutional officers have to sign it, or do they already, or do we have that authority? Because I don't think.
If you put it in the policy that everybody that is subject to the policy has to sign the document, then my opinion, and I'm sorry, Dan may feel differently, but I think if you put it in the policy that everybody has to sign it, then everybody has to sign it. And all it is an acknowledgement of receipt of the policy. And if I would say, if anything, what that receipt does is not for the recipient of the ethics policy, but for someone to have the responsibility to ensure that everybody gets a copy. I think that's the thing that you don't want to happen, is for somebody somewhere in this county, and there's a lot of people that are covered under this ethics policy, didn't get a copy of it and don't know that it exists. And so that's why I asked you guys, is this the first time you've seen it, and no one raised their hand, so that's a good thing.
Yeah, I think that's what we're talking about. Not that you're going to acknowledge and sign that you've received a copy of the ethics committee.
That's it.
Yeah.
Commissioner Harvey, what's your will for item number 5?
Well, we gotta wait and see about the minute.
At least first reading. Do you wish to move it? So, I'm waiting to hear from Commissioner Harvey on it. Waiver of rules. Thank you, Chairman Brewer.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
That takes us back to regular order. Recognize Commissioner Stidham on item number 2 in place of Commissioner Leonard.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. This resolution is a housekeeping resolution. We've already accepted this grant. Mid-year, the state came back and increased the funding for this grant, so it needs to come back in front of us for approving the amendment. I would request this be put on consent. No matching funds on this, by the way.
You've heard the explanation. Is anyone seeking recognition on item number 2? Sponsor moves consent. Any objection to item number 2 being placed on consent calendar? Without objection, item number 2 is placed on consent calendar. Without objection, recognize Commissioner Carr on item number 3.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. This resolution is expressing opposition to HB 275 and companion bill SB 292. Those bills would change the distance that you have to have a needle exchange from a school zone or a public park from 2,000 feet to lowering it to 1,000 feet. And that would directly impact my district and enable a location to be eligible for one of those. So I'm asking for waiver of rules on this, and I'll take any questions.
Anyone seek recognition on item number 3?
I'll move to put that on consent.
Sponsor moves consent calendar on item number 3. Anyone object to item number 3 being placed on consent calendar? Without objection, item number 3 is placed on consent calendar. Item number 4, I'm actually the sponsor on item number 4. Does anyone have any objection to me presenting it from the chair? I'll tell you my name, but I won't tell you where I live. Item number 4, this involves the county coroner's budget. This This revolves around a vehicle that the coroner sold for $3,000, and this money is going to be attached to his upcoming budget. If there's no objection, I would like to move consent calendar on item number 4. Without objection, item number 4 is placed on consent calendar. Without objection, moving on to item number 6, recognize Commissioner Crosswhite on item number 6.
This resolution concerns the former prescription shop that the health department is requiring. Started out with a bid, $1,400,000. Well, by the time they got the land, the design, the bidding process, the cost ended up being $1,781. So this is no new money. This will be coming from the state. So all we're asking is you all approve that we go ahead and do this with a total of $1,781. Like I said, no new money for the county, all of it's state, and if it's approved, I'd like to put this on consent also.
Sponsor moves item number 6 be placed on consent calendar. Is there any objection to item number 6 being placed on consent calendar? Seeing no objection, item number 6 is placed on consent calendar. Without objection, recognize Commissioner Vanover on item number 7.
Item number 7, I'd like to give everybody a little bit of background on that first. It seems like in District 6, where I'm from, there's been a pattern over the last couple of years that certain individuals will go out before Christmas, December, and go to tire shops and say, hey, I'll take that tire off your hands for $1. I know you got to pay $2 to get rid of it, but I'll take it for $1. And that's the way they get their Christmas money. And they've done this for several years, and it's become a pattern. And then they stack them up in their backyard, and of course the neighbors complain, and they'll call the planning and zoning people, they call the commissioners. We'll do the right thing, we'll send a letter of violation out. Then they get the second letter from County Attorney Street, and that's when they'll finally get their attention, and they realize they've got to get rid of those tires. And it seems like the letters we send out, we're not really, we're unintentionally encouraging them just to get rid of the tires wherever they can. They throw them out on the innocent, responsible landowners, and all of a sudden then they get the letter. Then they're responsible for cleaning up those tires. And it just seems almost a miscarriage of justice that the innocent, responsible landowners wind up being the ones who have to pay the money to clean the tires up. And I'm targeting tires because they're harder to get rid of. If somebody throws a freezer out of your property or trash, you can get rid of it, but it's harder to get rid of the tires. So I want to, this resolution says, it is to amend the Sullivan County Property Maintenance Code, Section 308-.2, by adding wording to enhance enforcement letters sent to property owners being notified of violations of the county's property maintenance code in regard to storage and dispersal of used tires. Sullivan County Property Maintenance Code includes steps planning and zoning department officials take to identify and notify property owners of violations of said code. And whereas the accumulation and storage of old used tires on private property within the county is a non-uncommon code violation addressed by the planning and zoning department officials in response to community complaints, and whereas there are regulations in place requiring disposal of used tires through permitted facilities, and whereas property owners in violation of the property maintenance code currently are notified by letter that they have 20 days to dispose of used tires, but no procedure is in place to show proof of how the tires are disposed of. And that's what this is addressing. Therefore, be it resolved, the following wording be inserted into violation notice letters within 30 days of the date of this letter. The property owner must submit documentation that used tires removed from the property are disposed of through a permitted facility. Be it further resolved, in cases involving a follow-up letter from the county attorney due to inaction during the initial 20-day window, the county attorney's letter of warning that court action could start after 10 additional days. The 30-day period for turning in documentation to that used tire removed from the property were disposed of through a permitted facility does not start anew but remains in place with the same deadline as stated in the original letter's date. And I've got a lot of this wording from TDEC. I looked at their website, and that's the procedure they use. They ask for documentation of where those tires were disposed of. And I think that would do two things. It would discourage people from engaging in this act to begin with, if they know they've got to get rid of the tires properly. And second, they won't throw them out on someone else's property if they have to account for them. So that's the resolution. I just want to put this on first reading because it hasn't gone through county attorney's streets eyes yet. I talked to Jason Van Hoy. He would feel more comfortable if county attorney looked at it and made sure it was inserted in the proper place and is all legal and defendable. So I'd like for it to be on first reading.
You've heard the explanation. Anyone have any questions for the sponsor on the resolution?
I'm a used tire expert if anybody has any questions.
Hey.
Yes, sir. Oh, no. Oh,
I
no.
have like this one.
What's it say?
This one says, make sewers great again.
How about used tires?
Can we do it to use tires?
Put it beside the 4-H mug. I appreciate everybody, and I hope,
You just never know when something like that sticks, it sticks. Commissioner Crawford, you're recognized, sir.
Zane, where are some of the permitted locations in the Tri-Cities area for disposal of these used?
that's a good question. That was one of my stops in the last few weeks to find that out, and the landfill in Kingsport will take all you got. Actually, the city of Kingsport will pick up 4 every other week when they do their brush disposal. Anyone can take 2 per day to the landfill. If you've got more than that, you can dump them for $225 a ton at the city landfill whole, or if you cut them up into smaller pieces, you can dump them for $35 a ton, which is a big difference. And I asked them, why is that? They said that the whole tires with the hole in the middle actually float up to the top of the surface when they try to bury them. And that makes it harder for them to maintain them, so they want them cut up into smaller pieces. So, but the Kingsport landfill will take all they've got. And actually, Ms. Torbett and Mr. Torbett are coming up with a flyer to put in those letters that are sent out to people to tell them that. And they're going to try to actually put those letters around in the communities to make people more aware of it.
But there's no location for recycling.
Mark Torbett is the other Torbett I was speaking about. He's got a plan, he's got a proposal. He wants to buy a tire shredder eventually and to put it at the landfill. And they can actually grind the tires up at a very small cost. And they can use all that for field over the landfill. So I think he's got a long-term plan to address that. But now it's more of an issue. That's a good question. Thank you.
Commissioner King, you're recognized, sir.
Thank you. Zane, let's say somebody dumps on my farm, and I go out and I research and I get serial numbers on the tires. And I can trace it back to a tire store that sold it. Is there any prosecution you can do for the tire store not keeping up with these tires?
I've talked to TDEC about that, and they said they've got a process in place. They said it's hard to trace down. When you get those numbers, you go back to that tire store. Of course, it wasn't their tires. They sold them to someone else. But TDEC's got a procedure to try to do that, to try to trace those numbers back.
Don't each tire store supposedly keep up with those numbers?
I think they're supposed to.
And they're charging the customer for disposal of those tires.
I've got that amount
It's
somewhere.
about $6 a tire that they'll charge you, to, if they keep them, then to
Disposal fee.
dispose of them.
Right.
And then that money goes supposedly to the state, and then it's supposed to come back to the county and to pay for a landfill or a place to dispose of those tires in Sullivan County, which we don't have one, but in Washington County they do.
Well, actually, Mark Torben said that was a joint facility between Sullivan County and Washington County, so we contributed to it,
Okay,
but it's about full, they say.
right.
And I think they take them to Patriot Tire in Johnson City or Bristol, and they grind them up. But I think that one's about to maximum capacity at Eastern Star Road up there.
Right.
And I talked to Steve Grant, tire seller there in Kingsport, and he pays $1.55 at tire tax to the state.
Right.
Then they get a little bit of that back as a, what they call it,
And that's supposed to pay for a place for Sullivan County residents to dispose of their tires. That's what that money's for.
right, he gets some money back, it's called a vendor compliance fee that the state gives him back, but it's kind of an issue, and I've talked to Mark Torben at length about this, and I think if he can get that tire grinder eventually at the landfill, they can grind them up. It costs almost nothing, and they can use all of it. But that's a good question about the numbers. I've tried to do some research about that, and TDEC's got a procedure, but the guy I talked to didn't seem real confident in it. So they don't have much luck when they try to trace them back. Everybody, they mine, yeah, they're not my tires. Huh?
Well, another problem in our area, we've got the Cherokee National Forest, which is 300 and some thousand acres on the north part of it, and that's where everybody wants to go throw their tires. And, we've worked over there, and, I've seen whole loads of tires, just, they back up, dump them, down over the bank, and they're there. And he's supposed to go pick them up. They don't have the manpower to do it. Does it go back to the county?
That's a good question, but I think if we can get this language in this resolution, people will be a lot less likely to do it. Because they know they've got to get rid of them properly, and they've got to show where they went to. So I think this resolution will help that. That if it goes in the national forest, it's nobody's responsibility, it seems like.
Right, well, it could go on the state forest or parks or whatever. And, that whoever owns the parks, say Kingsport from Base Mountain or something. So they can dump them, and whose responsibility is it to remove those?
The people throwing them out don't care, I don't know. I guess it'd be the county government, whoever that is.
All right, I'm done. Commissioner Jones, you're recognized, sir.
Commissioner Vanover, I believe that at the last few county commissioner days, we've had a couple of vendors that will take these and they use them, they grind them and reuse them in road mix.
I don't think that's true, is it, Scotty? I talked to Scotty Murray about that one time, said it wasn't legal to use it in the asphalt mix. Am I right?
Some states it is, some.
Commissioner?
Scotty?
Is it legal to use that ground up tires to go in the asphalt? I don't think it is it?
I wouldn't think it would be, Zane, unless it goes through a process, to take the metal out of I've not heard of it being done.
But I called and asked the commissioner about that, and he said he didn't think it was legal in the state of Tennessee to do it.
And the tires are a real issue for the highway department.
I think it makes the roads last too long if they put all that in there.
Picking these tires up, I was talking there. We got a trailer up here at the asphalt plant. We're averaging about 1,600 tires. We're emptying our trailer about once a month. And the trailer holds about 1,600 tires. That's just what we pick up on our right of way, people throw out. So Zane's got a good point. Something's got to be done. It's getting worse all the time.
I'm almost certain, and you can call our CTASC representative in Johnson City and ask him who the vendors are, that there are vendors at our biannual meetings that are taking these tires and grinding them. Now, Tennessee may not allow it, but there may be other states. There's a lot of things that are different state to state. And they may have a process to remove the metal. I don't know. But I know we've had those vendors at our meetings.
The grinding machine that Mark Torrey was talking about said it actually had a magnet in it. It took the metal out as they ground them, so.
Right.
But he said the landfill.
He's still got to dispose of them in our own landfill.
Well, he said the landfill could use it all for cover. So they could use every bit of it for cover of the landfill. So I just asked for it to be on the first reading so we can get all the bugs worked out with the county attorney.
Thank you, Commissioner Vanover. That brings us to the end of our calendar. I'm going to open for announcements and closing comments. Ms. Lee Powers, you came in after I recognized Mayors Lovell and Broyles. You came in. I didn't mean to slight you. It's good to see you. Having Lee Powers from Bristol City Council. I've been asked by a young man, Brandon Harperode. His father, Terry Harperode, served with us on the board for several years. I'm going to get an email out to everybody in the next couple of days regarding Terry. He's doing very poorly. He's had quite a few tests, and some of it just not very conclusive. But I'm going to send an email out with a little more detail, just on family's privacy and how you can get a message to him even if you want to go visit him. But he's doing very poorly, and just like to think of him. And also this meeting next week, comb, curl your hair, whatever it is you do, we're having our pictures made. So that's next week. Commissioner Crawford, do you seek recognition?
Personal privilege, Mr. Chairman, if I may, just want to thank everybody for your prayers and your thoughts during my recovery. With the help of the good Lord and some very stern therapists, I am now able to walk, which just a few weeks back I was unable to do that. And I also want to take personal privilege to wish my wife a happy birthday today. She has, for 55 years, she's put up with me. And she is my caregiver, my personal driver, and wonderful cook. And I just thank God for her and looking forward to 55 more, honey.
Thank you, Commissioner Crawford.
Yeah, now I need to go back home.
I'm trying to turn him on. Yeah, turn on.
I'd like to recognize Chairman of the School Board, Randall Jones, and congratulate them on making a selection for the new Director of Schools. And if it's possible, bring him and introduce him to us at one of our meetings. We'd like to meet him.
Do that soon.
Thank you.
Commissioner King, you're recognized, sir.
Thank you. On the same note as what Larry has been through, my wife has been through the same thing. She continues to recover, and she's made the announcement that February the 27th, she's going back to work. I think this will do her good. She's missed her cohorts at the office where she works out of, and I think this will be good for her, both mentally and physically. She's still going to therapy, but it's down to 2 days a week, and she's driving, so she's come a long ways to where she's at. But thanks.
Thank you, Commissioner King. And the last announcement I have, I'm not sure what the location change is. I'm sure it'll pop up in your email.
Yeah, rodeo this weekend. Yeah, at the club.
At the club. What are the times on that? Let everybody know what the times on that is.
7 to whenever.
7 to whenever?
Yeah. We got concessions, you need to come and get you a hot dog at
How
least.
many nights is it, Dwight?
One,
Just one night,
Yeah.
Saturday?
yeah.
That's all we are.
Jessica brought her children and rode the sheep mutton busting, so. But anyway, it's, Zane's, grandson rode the sheep mutton busting.
Rode it longer than Jessica.
Yeah, right. Yeah, so it's a lot of good fun for family.
And I'm going to recognize Mr. Bailey, but first, Jessica Means left a note to remind everyone that the book club is meeting this Saturday morning at 9 a.m. at the Bluntville Library. That's 9 a.m. and that's the book club. Mr. Bailey, sir.
I'd like to call your attention to the fact that the Executive and Administrative Committee will be starting their budget hearings this coming week. The Administrative Committee will be meeting on Tuesday night, and the Executive Committee on Wednesday night. The Executive Committee will be meeting at 5, Administrative at 6. And we will be notifying the particular departments that we're trying to schedule as to when they will be coming before these two committees, and hopefully we will get it over with expeditiously. So we'll try to keep everyone informed as to who will be bringing or who will be invited to appear at each meeting. So you have some idea. It's we put effort on this week to orient the new county commissioners. The group I thought was a very enthusiastic group. They were interested in the subject of the budget very much and asked a lot of questions, and I hope we carried some good information forward to them, because they definitely shared with us a lot of good questions and showed the interest that, from our standpoint, we like to see. They had good questions and they listened intently, and I think we had some good discussions. So we'll be putting out information on these hearings as to the place, so we'll be meeting and so forth. We had our orientation up in the conference room that we created in the elementary school, but we realized there may be some problems with some people getting into that location. There's not an elevator yet. It's going to be slow getting there. We're working on getting one installed, and we're not going to we don't put anyone in hardship of getting in there, but I've tried to look at to make sure the presenters and so forth, and I know the particular committee that's the administrative committee doesn't appear like there's any issues. But I know some other people, and I think we've been discussing some of those things that, like, I'd appreciate Dwight would send his wife rather than himself, quite frankly. And she might have just a little bit of limitation, not much in the lawyer. And Larry's doing pretty well. I'm not sure he's quite there. So we're going to be working with them to make sure there is a simple enough way for them to make their attendance there, or have them back in this room. It works a little better up there because it's more concentrated on the subject and presentation. And this week, I thought it worked rather well for the people that were meeting this last week. And we put some effort into it, and you can be proud. We've only used our staff to do the work so far. We're going to have to use a plumber to do some plumbing. But otherwise, it's been in-house. Everything has, and we've tried not to spend any money we didn't have to. But it does take a little bit of money. We've got to put new flooring and new lighting and painting, and clean the walls of all the blackboards and so forth. We don't take us too far back to our school days. But any questions anybody's got, I'll try to answer.
Larry, when are you moving?
Out of order.
Yeah. Did you have a question, Mr. Bailey?
I just want to say on behalf of the new commissioners, thank you to Leslie Bonner and Mr. Bailey. You did an excellent job. We were there almost 4 hours and could have been there a whole lot longer, but you were very patient with us and you connected a lot of the dots for us. So really appreciate the work that you did to prepare for that, and thank you for preparing us.
Mr. King.
Larry, when are you moving your office?
I'm moving, part of my staff will start moving things here today, next Friday.
Okay.
So we will not be moving everyone for a few weeks because we've got some issues get a few people in there, and the ones that have been most crowded, well, I'm gonna be moving along with a good portion of it, we'll each, slight office, table, just computers, here at courthouse, so you can be in here. I need to be up there most of the time. I think we got a better working environment. I think we got a better working environment there. Let's interrupt.
So, and you can drop by anytime, you know where we are. Thanks.
Motion to adjourn.
That clears the board? Motion to adjourn, all in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Mr. Chairman? I believe we got the record back, y'all.